So I wanted to start out with the boring stuff like definitions and what it actually means to be transgender. And so all that really means is that a person's gender identity doesn't match the sex that they were assigned at birth. There's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation out there regarding that. That is all it means. And so you don't have to transition medically or socially, socially, to be considered trans. You just are. And everyone transitions differently. Some people will do everything that is available to, hormones and surgery and everything like that. Other people do different things, and that's okay. And that doesn't make them any less trans. I've seen that a lot. People tend to say, if you don't do this, you're not trans enough, and that is absolutely incorrect. So I just wanted to make that clear. I also wanted to talk about another misconception, is that trans people feel like they're trapped in the wrong body. And some people do, and that's okay, but not everybody does. And when you use that as a, I guess, kind of umbrella statement, it tends to, it leaves a lot of people out. And so just wanted to get those things out of the way first. So I have known I was a boy ever since I can remember. I told my mom that I felt more like a boy than a girl when I was 7. And I had known, like I said, before that even, so it's been a long time coming, but I didn't come out till right after I turned 18, and it was difficult. I waited specifically until I was 18 because I didn't know how my mom would react. I knew my dad would be great and supportive and all that, but my mom was really conservative, and I had absolutely no idea what would happen. So, like I said, it was hard, but she took it surprisingly well. She struggles, and she still does, but I'm amazed with how well she's actually handled this. Because it's difficult to start to call someone that you've known for 18 years. It's difficult to change the name you call them or the pronouns you call them. And so I just am proud of her. She's done good. And like I said, my dad has been great the whole time. Everybody else in my family has been wonderful and supportive, and I consider myself so lucky for that, and for all of you here, because a lot of people don't have that support system. So I came out to my mom right after I turned 18, and it took a while for me to come out to everybody. I think that process took almost a year before I was out and open to everybody and going as Parker, all the time. Coming out never gets easier, and it's I don't know, it's difficult. But every time I came out, it has been really well received. It's been horribly awkward, but everybody has been great. So I came out. I was living openly as trans for, I think it was about 6 months, maybe I don't know, it was a few months at least, before I started considering medical transition, which in this case was testosterone. And that was a really tough decision for me, because it's just a big change. I don't handle change well at all, and that is, I can't think of a change any bigger than that. But I prayed about it for several days, just constantly, not knowing what I should do. And then I started to feel really calm when I thought about it. Thought about what it would be like if I did start on testosterone. And I've always considered that God telling me, that's okay, this is what you need to do. So in December of 2014, I went to a therapist to get a letter for me to go on testosterone. Because you have to see a therapist, you have an evaluation before you can do any kind of medical transition. And then I didn't actually start testosterone until a month later. I started on January 20th of last year. And it's helped so much with all the anxiety I've faced all my life, and depression and everything. I mean, it's still all there, but before I came out, or before I started testosterone, I never would have been able to get up here right now. So that's the best thing about it, about transitioning that I can think of. I think if you were to ask some other people, you would get the answer of a physical change, that this is what I like the best, like facial hair or something like that. But it's honestly, I feel so much more content, I guess, now. And so, I mean, everything else is pretty nice too, but that's been the best part. So, I mean, that's just kind of a rough timeline, I guess, of all this. But I really wanted to talk about names. It's a really, really important thing in the discussion of being transgender that always gets overlooked. But in the words of Doctor Who, the name you choose is like a promise you make. And it is a really important decision, and it takes so long to find your name. I considered at least 5 different names. I lost count after that, before I settled on Parker. And I'd like to say that it has a real deep meaning to it, and but it doesn't. I actually chose the name from a really, really weird show on Nickelodeon several years ago, called Mr. Meaty. So I don't know that's where you got. I didn't think I had told anybody, but yeah. So, but it fits, and I mean, it's me, and it, like I said, it's a long process finding the right name. But when you do find it, you almost feel a little bit more whole. So, and I think that's something that a lot of people who struggle to call someone by their their actual name, not the name they were given at birth. I think that's something that they don't understand, because for someone to have gone by the wrong name for so many years, and to have spent so much time figuring out who they are and what their name is, for someone to just ignore it or not even try really hard to try to switch, and I know, like I said, I think I already said this, but it's difficult to change what you call somebody after you've known them for so long. And I understand that, and I think most trans people understand that. And if you mess up, we understand. It's when you don't try. It's when you purposely call someone the wrong name or misgender them that hurts. And a lot of people don't understand how much that hurts, but it's bad. When I get misgendered, and it's not so much anymore, but it was more towards the beginning of, right after I came out and everything, I would get physically sick to my stomach whenever somebody would misgender me or use the wrong name. And it's, like I said, it's gotten a lot better. I'm more confident now, I think, and so I think that's why it doesn't bother me anymore. But that's just something to think about, regardless of if you approve of this, or if you approve of somebody transitioning or anything. It's important to at least respect them enough to use the right words when you're talking about them.
Parker, can I ask a question? I feel like your name has not been hard. That's kind of been easy for me, but I get tripped up about pronouns, and I'm guessing you might say what you said earlier, which is each person's different, and ask them. But, so for me, I would just use he for you because that feels right. I'm guessing that feels right to you.
Yep.
But would you be offended if someone, I don't know, wasn't sure how to approach and they just went to they? They is such a hard pronoun for me, and for some people, I'm guessing that is the preferred word. If you could just comment on that.
Well, the pronouns, that they and them are, like I said, I understand that they're kind of difficult to get used to, because you don't typically use that pronoun to describe somebody. But, well, you kind of do, actually. It's like if you're looking at somebody across the street and you want to tell you tell your friend something, you say something about them, and it's really not, I think it's not as big a deal as some people tend to make it. But again, if someone were to slip up, and it happens a lot, it happens all the time, if someone were to slip up and not use the right pronoun, it's okay. Most people understand as long as it's not done maliciously.
But I take it you would prefer he?
Yes.
Or him.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess most people could just, at the beginning, ask. If they don't ask, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, would you mind if people said they or them because they didn't know?
They and them, typically, all the trans people I've met or talked to, they and them is the best way to go if you don't know for sure.
Okay.
Most people don't get bothered if you use gender neutral pronouns. So yeah, they and them is probably the best way to go if you're not sure what their pronouns are. Or you could, if you feel comfortable enough to ask them, just say, "What are your pronouns?" And that's typically the way people like for it to be phrased. And terminology and stuff is important, just because dysphoria can be triggered by a number of things. So you just got to be careful. But typically, what are your pronouns is, no, I've never met anybody that that minded somebody asking them or using they or them.
What's dysphoria? You mentioned
Gender dysphoria or just body dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is actually, it's in the DSM-5 as, and that's why you have to go to a therapist to get a evaluation, because you have to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria in order to transition. But gender dysphoria just means that the fact that your gender and the sex you were assigned at birth don't match up causes you distress. That your body not looking the way, like if you're a trans man, gender dysphoria would be anything really about how you look or your appearance or how people perceive you, and that causes you distress because it's not who you are. And I'm actually getting ready to touch on that. So, but I think one of the biggest things that was an issue for me, dysphoria-wise, was my voice. I mean, it was never really super high pitched or anything, but it was pretty feminine most of the time, and it was the thing that always, I guess, it always made people think, oh, I was wrong, you're a girl. So that caused me a lot of anxiety and depression and everything. It's centered around my voice. And I actually have selective mutism, which is an anxiety disorder that renders you unable to speak in certain situations. And since I've started on testosterone and my voice has gotten deeper and everything, I still have bouts of that every once in a while, but it's not nearly as much as I used to. So that's, like I said, that's the biggest cause for dysphoria or that I've had, I think. So, but yeah. So I did want to go over some etiquette for talking to trans people, going along with the terminology and stuff that is important, just to be respectful when you're talking to somebody who's trans. And I have gotten every question you could possibly think of I've been asked. And all the inappropriate ones I've been asked at least 20 times. So, so I really don't, questions don't really faze me if they're worded incorrectly or anything anymore. I will always, though, tell them a better way to say it, politely and everything, but still. But anyway, so when you're talking to a trans person and you have questions, or most of these revolve around questions, but you got to remember, some people are more open and willing to have a discussion and educate a person and answer questions than others. And the people who aren't okay with it, that's okay, and just respect that. Find somebody who is willing, because for every person that doesn't really want to do that, there's another person who will. So don't get discouraged if you want to learn and can't find somebody who is willing to help you out. But always respect a person's decision not to answer a question. I know for everybody here, that's just common sense, but for a lot of people it's not. So I felt the need to mention it. If a person doesn't want to answer a question, if a person feels uncomfortable answering a certain question, that means that it causes them some kind of distress, and if you keep after them to try and get them to answer it, or if you ask it in a different way, they're probably going to stop talking to you. So, like I said, it causes things that you wouldn't even think of can cause dysphoria, and it's different for everyone. So, but so yeah, just be respectful with that. I have a few questions that you shouldn't ask. One of them is, don't ask about a person's past, like their birth name or what they used to look like or anything like that. And some people are more willing to share that. Some people have no problem with you knowing what their name used to be or what they used to look like. But other people, that causes a lot of anxiety and depression when they have to think about that. So it's just best not to ask, because it really doesn't matter anyway. You know, their birth name is not their name now, so why would you need to know it? So I mean, there's that. Again, common sense, but a lot of people don't understand that. So, and it's best not to ask too much about a person's transition. Not to go into too much detail about, you know. I mean, you can. I think it depends. Again, it depends on the person, how much they're willing to talk about. But it's not exactly respectful to ask them about surgery or anything like that. What?
In my experience, a lot of people who are willing to talk about it will actually work the topic with you.
Yep.
Is that true in your experience as well?
Yeah. I guess it kind of, you know, if it's something that the person's willing to talk about, and a lot of times, yeah, they will. A lot of times they'll be the first person to talk about it, yeah. And if not, I mean, you can always ask without going into too much detail, or, hey, would you mind discussing this with me? And then, you know, if they say, yeah, great. And if not, that's okay too. Questions about the actual process of transition, like what actually goes on with medical transition, are typically better Googled than asked an actual person. Not only because it's disrespectful or anything like that, but you're more likely to get a lot more accurate answers and a lot easier to understand answers if you just go online and research it. What was I going to say? Well, can't remember. And another thing, the last one not to ask, is you really shouldn't ask about someone's personal experiences with discrimination or unacceptance, because, I mean, obviously that's a hard subject for them. And if that's something that they're willing to talk about or they would like to share with you, they will say it first. You don't need to ask if they're willing to talk about it. But just, I've gotten that question several times, and I haven't had too much. Like I said, I'm really lucky. I've had it really, really good. But just the fact that somebody thought about this and still decided this is a good idea to ask. You know, how did your parents say it? Did your parents, you know, were your parents upset or anything? That is, I don't understand how that's relevant or polite. But so just, yeah, be careful when you're talking about things with discrimination, I think. And I think, like I said, people who are willing to talk about their personal experiences are going to tell you, they're going to tell you themselves. And so, I mean, I think that's all I had to say about that. Let's see. I had a couple of questions to ask. How you word things, like I said, is important. So if you aren't sure about someone's pronouns, just what are your pronouns? Just pretty much just think about the way you're wording your questions. And you know, if anything jumps out at you, like, that might not be the greatest thing to say, reword it. Try to reword it. If you don't know how to word a question, most of the time people understand and will tell you a better way to word it. They'll answer and tell you, or you know, if they're willing to answer, and will tell you a more correct or polite way, way to word this question. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about was accidentally misgendering somebody. I've already touched on that a little bit, but if you accidentally use the wrong pronoun or name, again, that's okay. Just apologize real quick and move on. You know, fixating on it is, I know people who do that always have good intentions, but it can actually make things a little bit worse, especially if you're in a group of people that may or may not know that you're trans. Because if they fixate on it and, no, I was supposed to do this and I messed up, I'm so sorry. And then now these other people are going to have a little bit of an idea that something's not, something's a little different with you. Which, again, is not bad, but some people don't feel comfortable being open about it. Some people can't be open about it for fear of their safety. So it's better just to quickly apologize and move on. That's all I really.
I have a friend that starts most of his speaking engagements by saying, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. I have to amend that because while I do love Jesus, I cuss a lot. And I'm going to do my best not to do that. The only thing I guarantee is no help. So, I've always been pretty liberal around social issues. I mean, I've always been pretty liberal around social issues. I look at it like nobody's getting hurt, it's none of my business. Never really been concerned with who somebody loved. I kind of was thinking about this when I said, yeah, but you grew up in rural North Carolina in the 70s. How many did you know? How many gay people did you know? And come to find out, I knew about at least 4 that have come out since we graduated. And the signs were there. There were 2 of them that got fake IDs, so they not to drink, but so they could get into daddy-os and dance. So, but I attribute my liberalness on this issue to 2 things. One is my parents, who always taught me to judge people by who they were, not something that they don't have any control over, their color, their sexuality, any of that stuff. And 2, I was out of the church during most of the evangelicals' insanity around LGBT issues. So I didn't have to deal with that. So, and I am not an expert when it comes to this stuff. I'm going to put that up there right up front. I do, however, know a lot more about it than I ever thought I would. But anyway, like I said, he came out, was 2011, right? No, that was when you came out.
It's not straight.
It's not straight, yeah.
No.
That's because that was around, you were writing a paper for, about anti-amendment 1, being against that. And then a couple of years later, I'm at the beach, having a good time. I get a phone call, and it's him. Dad, I just need to tell you, I didn't want to do this on the phone, but I just need to tell you, I'm trans. Okay. This is a heck of a time to tell. I didn't care. But what you told your mom.
I accidentally told Mom.
Yeah. Y'all had gotten in an argument or something. But anyway. But at first it was like, this is out of the ordinary. But then I thought, yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, as soon as he said that, it's like everything fell into place. So, anyway, but when your kid drops a bombshell like this one on you, you got two choices: denial, which a lot of people do, or acceptance. I went with acceptance. When I became a parent, I said, I'm in this for the long haul. I can't just write him off. So, but if you're going to acceptance means you got to start educating yourself. And I started researching, but the one thing I learned the most from, you're not going to believe this, is the South Park episode. It's called The Sissy, C-I-S-S-Y, which is cisgender. That's what a lot of people refer to as normal people. What cis means you identify
Identify with the sex you were assigned at birth.
Exactly. I'm not going to go into a lot of the thing, but it starts out, Cartman, if you watch South Park, you know who Cartman is tired of waiting in line for the boys' room during recess. He's not having enough time to do what he wants to do. He finally gets fed up and reaches in. He said, "That's it, I've had it." He reaches in his pocket and pops a pink bow on his hat and says, "I'm transgender. That means I can use the girls' bathroom." He didn't say bathroom, but I'm not going. I said I wouldn't cuss. So anyway, and if you think that sounds a lot like the Republicans that are stuff they're putting out, you're right. And when your elected officials start to sound like Eric Cartman, you got a problem. But anyway, but it really, South Park gets a bad rap, but they do some of the best social commentary on TV right now. It is, I'm just blown away when I watch it sometimes. But anyway, so that's the basic background. So, and the main thing I was going to talk about is what it's like to be the parent of a transgender child. And for me, more than anything, it's been humbling. By the time he was 18, I didn't think I knew everything about being a dad. I had a pretty good handle on it. I did not. I found out exactly how much I did not know. There was just an avalanche of new stuff. Like, we've already talked about names, and like he said, when you've called somebody one name for 18 years, it's kind of hard to switch over to another one. But it's one of those things you do when you love somebody. Pronouns. We talked about pronouns. And there are some newer gender neutral, I guess, pronouns. Was it Z and here? And there's others. And there's they and them. And I like to think I'm a bit of a writer, and working these things into writing or conversation or whatever just does not feel right. It's really hard, you know. But again, it's one of those things you do when you love somebody. Then there's the discrimination, which we're all familiar with. I'm a straight, white, cisgender man that lives in the South. If you looked up top of the heap in the dictionary, you'd see my picture. It just doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So, and I don't know a lot about discrimination firsthand because I've never really experienced it. And to be honest, all this crap that's come about since HB2 came up, and it was there before, we just didn't encounter it as much. But if it was me, it wouldn't be that big a deal. I could handle that, but it's my kid. It's a lot different when it's your kid they're talking about. And as most everybody knows, I used to work with the fire department down in Raleigh. And firefighters are very conservative people. They generally are fairly rural. They come from that, that traditional working class background. And I've had to listen to a lot of crap. It got so bad. Some of you may have seen this, but I posted this on Facebook a while back. There have been a lot of ugly, hateful things said by people who support HB2, and the fact that some of these words are coming from people that I have counted as brothers and sisters, people that I've served with as a firefighter, feels like a betrayal. We shared meals together, risked our lives together, and the community risked our lives for each other in the community and talked each other down after dealing with trauma that threatened to break us. And now you want to force my son, who is transgender, into situations that expose him to harassment, humiliation, and even violence for incredibly thin, ridiculous reasons. That hurts a lot. I know that eventually we'll get past this. One day things will be normal again. Not the same, but normal. We'll be able to laugh and joke and tell the war stories we all love hearing, even though we've heard them 1,000 times. But right now, I don't want to talk to you. Now, if I had seen one of my friends post that, it would have said, oh, crap, I need to back up. Didn't happen. I can't remember all the responses, but basically it was get over it. I don't really
There
talk
was
about
also some, oh, I didn't mean you, I didn't mean your son.
Oh yeah, I get that a lot too. Yeah. That's my son you're talking about when you say this crap. And as I mentioned, there's violence involved. There's harassment. What is it like? There was a study out of the DC metro area, and 70% of trans people in DC have experienced harassment up to and including violence in the bathroom. And I don't think that's an anomaly. I would suspect it may even be more so than that. Yeah, and it's hard being a parent in today's world. You know, all the crap that's going on, all the stuff you have to worry about, and now you get to add another. When you're a parent of a trans kid, you get to add something else. You know, somebody's going to do something stupid to your kid, or possibly could do something stupid to your kid because they don't like the fact that they're trans. And I'm not stressed enough when my son walks out the door, worrying about him running into the normal stuff. So now I got this extra dose of angst to go on top of it. That probably bothers me more than anything. And this is the only, the only two ways that I can see anybody's motivations for backing this stuff, for doing these things is, HB2 specifically is, one, you think he's a predator, not saying you guys, but just in general. These people think he's a predator who's going to use these laws to hunt for prey. And the other is that his well-being is less important than their children. It's less important than protecting your kids from some imaginary threat. And the bathroom predator threat has been conclusively debunked. Something like 200 municipalities in 18 states have include gender identity in their law, in their anti-discrimination laws, and none of them report any increase that can be any increase in sexual violence that can be tied to these laws. So the names that people call him are awful. It's tough, but it's not all doom and gloom. I finally have a son. When I was when he was very much a tomboy growing up. Is that okay to say that? So much so that his sister always referred to him as the boy I never had. We get to do stuff together that we might not get to do otherwise. And like he
especially likes it during the male bake-off.
I said that too. I can get actual help. He's a much better baker than I am. As he said, he can talk to people. I cannot, the change in him since he came out and began to transition is amazing. We go to McDonald's and he couldn't even order his own food. I had to order for him. Like 15, 16 years old at that point. Just getting that extra layer of junk out of the way, the dysphoria, has made a massive amount of difference. And there's been a big improvement in his mental health, if only because he can talk to the therapist. I have literally gone to therapy sessions with him and sat in the room for an hour and listened to the doctors try to get him to say something. Not a word, just that number right there. But I do worry about his safety, but I don't have to worry about whether he'll be able to make it in the world. I can see this huge change, and I know that he's got a community that loves and accepts him, and that makes all the difference in the world.